Hello everyone, I'm Augustine and I'm here with Scott Cohen today. And my first question to you is how important was education to your success?
Um, First off, Augustine, it's great to be with you. Love seeing um, high school age kids having an entrepreneur spirit. So kudos to you. And I think an education's critical to success. And so, just like you're getting your education and then also doing things, extracurricular activities, to be more well-rounded is great. But I think foundational elements start with an education. Education, knowledge equals power is the old adage, and the foundation of that is getting an education. Not that every class or course in every grade is going to be directly applicable to what you do long term and your direct one-to-one success or correlation. But the foundational elements of time management, how to learn, how to prepare, how to take tests under pressure, how to make decisions, be decisive, all those kind of intangibles play a role, whether you realize it or not, in the education process, in outcomes. And then there's a bunch of stuff that's, direct correlation depending on what you go into it. For me, having the ability to get a great education growing up, um, I think gave me the confidence to know that I can set out and accomplish anything that I want, and persevere even when there's adversity or when you don't do well on one test, but you can still do well by the end of the year or bounce back. So all those characteristics I think have proven as important foundational elements.
I agree. Did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur when you grow up? Or was that something you
No, no, when I was your age, Augustine, I had no idea what I was going to do when I grew up. If I was to be honest, and I think that's probably true for most people. They may say, "Oh, I want to go this route or that route," but that's oftentimes because they get asked questions by their grandparents or parents. What do you want to do when you grow up? And you don't want to say, "I have no idea." So you kind of pick something that you might have some knowledge of, or that your parents or neighbor has done. But the reality is, um, I didn't know at that time, and I think that's okay. I think you grow a lot, in the formative years of junior high, high school, college, and you see what you like, what you don't like, and then organically go there. Some people know, some people are, but very few, and I didn't fall in that very few.
I agree. So when did you first know that this is what you wanted to do?
You know, I had, I would say, an entrepreneur spirit in high school, where I was doing some, like we call it side hustle outside of school in the summers to earn extra money in coaching basketball, and giving one-on-one kind of tutoring of basketball lessons and then clinics. And I enjoyed getting new kids to sign up and really the parents to sign up for the kids. So that was probably like my first inclination of entrepreneurship. And then when I was in college, when I was 19, is when it was much more cemented for me. While I was at University of Arizona, I started a company in the hospitality and promotion space. It was a real big college town, and I basically, brought in music acts, and bands, DJs, and basically started a company called Peak Productions and formed an LLC for the first time, and then hired like 25 of my closest friends to work for me and built that over the course of 3 years in college, which provided some incredible income. And what I enjoyed most about it was making the deals with the different venues and figure, kind of the marketing aspects and setting up the whole promotional aspect. But in college, my major and minor were political science and sociology, with the assumption maybe I'd go to law school. Again, Augustine, I didn't really know at that time, but being from Washington, D.C., it's where I was, grew up by right down the street from your dad, actually. We had, there was in DC at the time, it was politics or law for the most part. That's what we were surrounded by in DC. And so I knew I didn't really want to go into politics. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll be a lawyer. And so studied that and enjoyed studying it, but enjoyed um, the deal making and entrepreneur side of Peak Productions and got my feet wet with that between the ages of 19 and 21. And I think that really gave me the confidence directionally to know that I think this could be business could be a better route than law for me.
That's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. So I know a lot of people have trouble when it comes down to like getting the ideas for different companies to start. How did you get your idea for yours, for your first one, or for your first few?
Well, I've been involved with the let's see, over the course of now 30 years, I'm getting pretty old, Augustine. Um, about seven companies now. So they all have different slants to them of how we started them, but I would say the last few have a similar pattern, um, in that we're taking something that already exists in the marketplace and looking at how can we make it better and more affordable. So more affordable for the masses, and a better value proposition. So, there's all kinds of entrepreneurs. There's the inventors. So you think in this world today, like an Elon Musk stands out as a true inventor. Taking something from concept, to fruition, as a kind of first mover advantage, of what, you name any one of his companies, but, reimagining it. Whereas what I've done, frankly, I'm not that smart, Augustine, so I give Elon Musk great credit, but there's very few Elon Musks out there that can successfully do that and invent something and then take it to be a household name. So what I've done is really taken ideas and products that are out there. So if you think Bite, which you're familiar with, in the dental space, invisible aligners were already out there and existed. People knew of Invisalign was a fairly well-known name, and Invisalign was doing really well with clear aligners, but they were expensive. They are expensive. They can be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000, which by definition qualifies out the masses, and really caters to more of the one percenters of the globe. And so we looked at, okay, we think invisible aligners make a lot of sense to straighten teeth and not have those metal braces that I had to wear growing up. But how do we make it more affordable? And so what we did was we lowered the cost by about 60%. And so basically provided what Invisalign was selling to the dentists as wholesale of a couple of $1,000s. We provided that to the end consumer for a couple of $1,000s, and made a really cool brand around that and had some differentiated technology around that. And so that's a good example of looking at something that already exists in the market, but how do we make it more applicable to the masses when there's a big need? And so another example of that is I have two companies going right now, Alter Me, and Alter Me is in the health and wellness space. So we're looking to basically hyper personalize your health and wellness for each individual, because what's best for one person in the fitness space and the wellness space may be not as perfect for the next. And so how do we individualize that and customize that? And so what we've done is we've taken DNA, um, uh, fitness markers for DNA. We've taken biometrics, and we've taken your goals and objectives and put in all this content for fitness around it, and said, depending on what your goals and objectives are, we can personalize every day based on the data that's specific to you and your genetics. And so there's a lot of companies out there that focus on fitness. So you think like the Pelotons or the Tonals come to mind, or biometrics, the Whoops or the Auras come to mind, and then lots of DNA companies come to mind. But what we've done is taken those disparate parts and, if you will, integrated that into one system of record instead of having to go to all these disparate parts and figure it out and have it be really expensive, and nutritionists and personalized coaches. We've kind of put that all under one roof, all that under one roof, for $99 down and $59 a month. So really trying to democratize access to the health and wellness so people can live a better life, longevity, weight loss, all the things that are good for us, and democratize that the same way we did in the oral care space for Bite. And then another example, which is the same theme, is a hearing aid company, Audien Hearing, I'm the chairman of right now, which is same theme. Hearing aids have been expensive, 2,000 to 5,000 US dollars. And what we've done is democratized hearing aids for $99 to $500 for the masses. So now, there's a lot of people in this world that have poor hearing, but they just can't afford to actually get the help. And that's a shame because, what we saw as an opportunity in the market to help the masses, because when you have bad hearing and you don't have hearing aids, your increase for dementia goes up significantly, your increase for sudden death syndrome goes up significantly. So really, now we're in every Walmart in the country at $99, and democratizing the hearing health platform. And so all those three companies have a similar theme. We didn't invent hearing aids. We didn't invent
Yeah.
the fitness space. We didn't invent the clear aligner space. But we looked at how do we make it better and more cost effective.
Got it. So would you say advertising is also a big part when it comes down to making companies big or scaling companies fast?
Well, advertising, I would say marketing
Yeah.
play, generally advertising falling under marketing plays a critical role in any company's success if they're going to look to grow. To grow, I always say there's only so many good referrals out there. So if you have a mom and pop small business, on Main Street in your town, probably referrals work to go into the sandwich shop, if you will. But if you're looking to build a big company, that is going either, global, or even, just outside of your local demo, you probably need to expand beyond just referral. And referrals are the best, right? Because there's no cost to that, no cost to the marketing. But the reality is you're going to have a slow go of growth. And so to hit the growth goals, yes, having a proper advertising and marketing strategy is critical, along with a lot of other pieces, right, are critical. But having the right cost of marketing can be the difference between winning and losing. If your cost per acquisition to acquire a client is one of the most important items. Once you have the right foundation, once you have the right product and all the other infrastructure in place, then if your cost to acquire a customer doesn't make sense, you'll never get profitable. So marketing is definitely one of the critical aspects.
Are there any other critical aspects that you would say are up there as one of the most important?
Well, your team, the team you hire. I always say that the two most important things in a company is, one, picking the right space to go into. We all only have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're all set with the same amount of time. It's how do you use it? And there's lots of different things we can all do with our time. So being really intentional with our time, and specifically to starting companies, intentional with what what industry you go into, what does the addressable market look like, how big is it, do you have the expertise, do you understand it? And then from there, once you identify that and the opportunity, then I say the next most important thing is now the team. Who are the leaders? The people are the most important asset to a company. You could have the best product, best technology in the world, but if you have the wrong leadership, the wrong people with the best product and technology, it won't amount to anything. You'll never hear about that company. It'll go out of business. So it starts with that. And then once you have the team, it's being super clear about what your North Star is. What is it that we're trying to accomplish? If you're in product, what is our product goals? If you're in marketing, what are those goals? Or sales or supply chain, customer service, account management, operations. So all those things, the leaders of that have to be very intentional about what are the most important things to do in those areas. And so we talked about marketing a little bit. There's sales, there's customer service. So, all those things come into play, because if you could have great sales, but if you have terrible customer service, that's going to make the sales job a lot harder in the future, because bad reviews will happen. The cost per marketing will go up. So it's all they're all intertwined. So every department relies on the other one for their overall success. I like to say, give an analogy that we're all rowing a boat together. And if one of the leaders of a department isn't rowing along with us, the boat's not going to go at optimal speed. So those are some of the other pieces to think about.
That's fair. What do you look for when you go to hire people or when you go to hire?
Yeah, good question, Augustine. That it's unfortunately not a science. Well, I think it's probably it's probably a combination of art meets science. Um, Certainly, in leadership roles, I like to say the first 10 people I hire, um, I want to make sure that I don't just find them randomly on a job board or have their resume sent over. I really work hard at networking for those first key hires that can make or break the company, and I do that actually through referrals and my own network, and so work really hard at that network. So I don't think in my last few companies we've hired anyone that's been in the first 10 employees that hasn't either directly worked with myself or someone else on the leadership team prior, or if that has been the case, then it's been a direct referral from someone that we know. So and the reason that I feel strongly about that is that it's easy to get duped on a resume, for better or worse. And, it's not just about the resume, it's about the integrity, the trust, the work ethic. The intangibles really matter, because the first 10 employees, if you will, on the leadership team set the culture for the company. And like, we can't, it's very expensive
Yeah,
to miss on one of those, because then you have to take a step back. And when you want to start going forward, now you have to take a step back because you picked the wrong leader. So spend a lot of time, always say, the old adage, hire slow, fire fast. Take our time finding the right person. It's like a dating process. You have to really find the right person, be super selective, leave nothing to chance. And then as we hire those people, they then can hire folks to scale the organization. Obviously, someone that's going to be the number 100 employee or 500 employee in my companies, we're not going to always be able to get through referrals. We try to, but you get to a certain scale where then more traditional means of, whether it be on the job boards or LinkedIn, et cetera.
got it. Yeah, that's really interesting to know. Something else that really interested me is that I heard you invest in different companies. How do you choose what companies you invest in? Like, what do you look for?
Yeah, I do a fair amount of investing, and at different stages. So, when I think about investing, it's for our family office, it's about asset allocation and having diversification. So not all eggs in one basket, if you will. Um, you know, it's very hard. It's very hard to pick one winner. Very few people bat 1,000. So having a diversification of investments is key, whether that be from real estate to public markets, stock markets, small cap, international, S&P 500, whether that be private equity, hedge fund. All those things play a diversification role, both from a geography and asset class, so that when one's doing well, another one might not. Gold may be up and the public markets may be down, as a good example, right? So having a hedge. But when we look at individual companies, in the earlier stages and or the growth stages, you know, um, really look at the leadership. Going the same way that I talked about building a company, I look at those same foundational aspects. Number one, who do I believe in the leadership? What's their track record of leadership? Do I believe in the market opportunity, the value proposition? And if I believe in it, how big of an opportunity do I believe it can be? What do I believe the valuations can be in that space? What are the threats and opportunities, and kind of get our head around due diligence, deep due diligence before we come in. For every company we invest in, we probably pass on at least 100. So a lot come across the desk, and we stay very selective and disciplined in our investing approach.
So it takes a lot of time to actually find one that you really want to invest in.
Yeah, to do it right. That's right.
Okay. So can I ask you, have there been any big challenges that you faced along your career that have helped you shape who you are and helped you along your path?
You know, I always say almost in every company, there's challenges along the way. Everyone always just reads about the headlines of, sold this company for $1 billion at Byte and all the accolades and awards and those things. But no one talks about, that
Yeah.
you don't know if you're going to make it out of the first year. How are you going to get profitable? And so you're trying to make payroll, and you're sweating every sale that's coming in. And so those early stages in every company are a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of long hours of work, because the uncertainty is real. You know, Even with a track record, there's no certainty in business. I think I read, 9 out of 10 businesses go out of business, and I'm not surprised by that. Because it's a contact sport. It's hard. It requires, to be paranoid, to think about what are the risks every day, to stay one step ahead. And so the first year when you're just turning on the lights, and the business is in the garage, so to speak, there's naysayers challenging, like, why are you doing that? With Byte, if uh, if we had $1 for everyone that says, why would you go into dental? That already exists. That's already out there. That seems like crazy. You know nothing about dental. If I listened to those people, we would have never gotten started. So, I'd say, and by the way, while those people are saying that, it actually isn't going well. We're starting off trying to figure it out, and there is uncertainty. So really keeping the blinders on. I like to use the analogy of a Kentucky Derby horse race. The jockey has the blinders on the horse. It doesn't don't block out the noise, block out what's on both sides of you. And if you have great conviction and stubbornness and perseverance and grit, you can get through what seems like uncertain times. And it may be a different way. Companies pivot. We've had to pivot a lot of times. Things you might get one or two things right, and then the third thing you get wrong. And you're like, oh, wow, we got to pivot away from that. I like what we're doing over here, but I don't like what we're doing over here. So having the flexibility and soberness to being honest with yourself, not believing your own bullshit, if you will, when things, staying humble there. But you got to block out the noise in the early days, because, yeah, it goes wrong in the beginning. It's hard.
So what drives you to keep pushing when you're starting these companies? Because I know a lot of people try to start one and then they see that it's not working and they just quit.
Yeah, I think some of that is, how some of your people's grit and tenacity. You can't teach that to an adult, but for kids like you coming up, it's failing a lot. It's okay to fail. It's not, being not being afraid to fail. Taking perceived risk. The sun's still going to rise the next day. The beautiful thing is, when you're young, you don't have to take care of a spouse and kids and grandkids. So go for it, and don't worry that, on social media, you might not have something glamorous to post. You know, it's too, I believe that the number one limitation for on people, and quitting, and really why they're quitting and why they give up, is the fear of failure. So when they see adversity, they throw it in because they don't want to be labeled a failure to themselves or others. But if you remove that and say, you know what, these are all learning opportunities. Everything we do is a learning opportunity. So how if I fail right now, it's not a period behind it, right? the sentence isn't finished. So just because you fail today doesn't mean tomorrow you can't win. So don't, don't look at things as when things aren't going right and things are going, wrong. Don't look at it like I need to give up. Look at it actually like I need to double down and keep going because I can turn something around. I might just have to think about it different. I might have to get other mentors to help, whatever it may be. But grit is really important. I say the most important thing in hiring someone is their grit, their determination to overcome objections. And that happens by going through experiences of failures when when at your age, obviously.
Yeah. So would you say that at a younger age, was there any key one or two experiences that you really like felt helped you?
You know, I I played sports, and I thought, I think of for me, sports was really helpful, because it was hard. There were days you wanted to be there. There were days you didn't. It's competitive. There's a scorecard. You're either winning or losing. Not a big fan of participation trophies. You either win or you lose, and you're playing to win, and so by definition, a lot of times you're going to lose, and feel that failure. And so having that pain and the competitiveness and learning when you fail, how do you get back up? How do you keep going? Having to wake up early, manage time with all the other activities. Maybe it's lifting weights or in the gym or on the field running. When you don't feel like it, when you're tired, all those things, I think were really helpful in especially team sports, actually individual too, but combination of team and individual, really taught a lot of life lessons for me. And school wasn't easy for me. Went to a competitive high school, wasn't in the top quadrant of students by any means. So school was hard, and frankly, I think that's okay. If oftentimes the valedictorian of the high school isn't the one that ends up at the top of the mountain in the end because sometimes it's too easy for them. So having to fight through school and sports and those kinds of things, I think in my journey proved helpful,
I
even
agree.
though at the time I was bitching about it.
Oh yeah, I agree. The discipline that sports brings is really helpful. It's helped me a lot already. Just
Horrific.
get out there, having to keep pushing, not stopping, keep training. It's great.
Yeah, and you're doing it on the tennis courts with Rafael Nadal, right?
Right now, no, right now I'm at a German academy.
Oh, you
So
got German Academy.
I'm
Well, it's good
playing
because
every
because
day.
Nadal retired, so we won't worry about him anymore.
Yeah. But I'm playing every day, tournaments, just keep working hard.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
So would you say if what advice would you give to someone who's growing as an entrepreneur who wants to find themselves? I know you've already given a lot, but is there anything
Well,
else?
I think I would sum it up that just get started. It, Perfection is the enemy of good. So get started. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to pivot, but get started. Yeah.
Well, that was my final question for you. Thank you so much.
It was fun, Augustine. Good luck with everything.